Hi, you guys. This is CT Johnson, the funding doctor with the Funding Doctor's COVID-19 Financial Survival Guide. Today, we have Danny Adams from Prime Capital with us. How you doing, Danny?
Very well. Thanks for having me, CT.
Yeah, really, really great to have you on. So Prime is a lender that I've been working with for some amount of time. So Danny, why don't you give us a 10-second overview of who you are and who Prime is?
So I'm the COO of Prime Capital, and we're a commercial lender. So we're Australia-wide. We provide mortgages between $250,000 and $10 million secured by property. So we don't do any secured lending. All our products, we work with mortgage brokers, all for business purposes. We've been in business since 1997. And in that time, we've lent more than $2 billion. We currently have a loan book of around $500 million.
So by my recollection or by my reckoning, that makes you one of the largest and most active private lenders in Australia. Is that right?
Uh, yeah, so we've probably transcended the word private a number of years ago now. So private would imply that the funds are actually raised through individual investors. That's not the case with us. We've got lots of well-established lines of funding that are raised,
Right.
essentially the same way as banks do through structured products and through warehouse facilities and all of that kind of stuff. But thanks for the compliment, and yes, we think we're one of the largest in the space that we're in.
Well, and by private, I really mean non-bank, right? So I've been using those terms synonymously, but you're right. It probably is more correct to say as a non-bank lender. But
Yeah, certainly. So the differential, if it's helpful, is that we don't do any code lending. We don't do any lending to retail clients. There's lots of bigger, better institutions across Australia that love to do that business. So in the space where 100% of our business is non-code secured against property, then would probably be one of the largest commercial lenders in
yeah,
Australia.
yeah. And what do you reckon sets you guys apart from other lenders in Australia?
That's a good question, and it's probably the mortgage brokers that answer that question better to us. So all of our business is done with mortgage brokers. We don't deal with clients directly, so we don't have any channel conflict there. They're telling us time and time again that the thing that sets us apart is that we can do a loan without any servicing or the same kind of level of servicing requirements as mainstream lenders or other lenders do. So it makes it a lot easier to get a loan from us. Is that there's not so much servicing. It's not as bureaucratic or as rigid as people may find with other traditional lenders.
Yeah. What do you think or what type of deals do you think Prime is best at?
It would be SMEs across Australia with residential metro properties. That seems to be the easiest stuff for us to deal with. We do a lot of different types of transactions, so we can take residential property or land or industrial or commercial properties. But when it comes to single security in a metro location that's residential, we can settle them in as few as 5 days, and we can do dozens of them every week.
Yeah. Given the upheaval that COVID-19 has caused, what's Prime stance? So, what's the impact to you guys? Are you still open for business?
100% open for business, and we're settling more than ever.
Oh, fantastic. That's unusual to hear, but I guess given your sort of position in the market, that's not maybe that surprising. So lots of my observation and one of the things I have said today in um, my update is that's my observation is that a lot of the smaller guys and a lot of the newer guys have left the market. So some of
Mhm.
the more established players and some who have carved out a niche in the way you guys have, in some ways you're extending your reach. So that's I guess that's to be expected.
Well, so we lend to SMEs predominantly. I would say that SMEs across Australia have been more affected by the current pandemic than maybe any other sector, and it would
Yeah.
not seem very smart of us to close our doors um, at the time that small businesses need it most.
Yeah. So in the current situation, has it changed anything in terms of the way you guys look at deal? For instance, has it changed your LVRs or the way you're doing due diligence or anything like that?
No. So LVRs and pricing remain the same. Unlike a lot of our competitors that have increased pricing and actually reduced the LVRs, the only thing that would have changed for us is having some interest retention for what we consider as borrowers that might be at slightly higher risk. So we look across, and that would be typically 3 months. So we look across at China and Europe that have had the pandemic significantly earlier than Australia did. Within a period of 3 months, it seems that the worst has passed and restrictions are easing there. So we've considered with a high risk borrower to retain 3 months worth of interest would help them to bridge the gap till economic conditions return to what could be considered normal and income starts
Yeah.
growing again.
Yeah. Okay. Are there any absolute no-go type of deals for you guys now? Like, for instance, regional deals or house and land or subdivision or anything like that?
No, not really. So we're being quite pragmatic. We don't believe that this situation is permanent. So anything that we considered as an acceptable security 3 to 6 months ago, we still consider it as being an acceptable security today, and almost certainly 3 to 6 months from today will also be acceptable security.
What kind of deals do you see getting done, actually getting settled in this environment?
Okay, so it would be probably 3, which is borrowers where the servicing from income has evaporated. So a lot of small businesses are seeing that their income has just completely disappeared. So whilst the economy is at a standstill, we're seeing lots of deals where the servicing's dried up, which is coming to us. I think the banks have been a little bit harder to work with as well. So for our small team, it's been relatively easy to switch to a work from home policy.
Yeah.
I don't think that's quite the same with a large institution to try to get 10,000 people working from home and functioning in the same way. I just don't see it being quite as easy. So we're getting a lot of business out there might traditionally have seen just because of the speed factor. And then the third one would be borrowers that would have maybe previously used a different type of loan product. So for example, a lot of the unsecured lending has virtually stopped. And as you mentioned earlier on, CT, there's quite a lot of competitors that have either changed their policy or reduced their LVRs or stopped and gotten out of the market altogether.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So what advice would you give to borrowers who are seeking funds from Prime? Like, what makes it easy for you to say yes to a deal?
Lots of things make it easy to say yes to a deal, but what I would suggest or the advice I'd give is work with your broker. So we work with brokers. We don't deal with borrowers directly, so work with a broker. We try to make it as easy as possible for them, so we can provide a fast approval. So literally, within 24 hours, we try to get all approvals out. It's very simple, so there's no servicing, and as I mentioned previously, we've settled more than $2 billion worth of loans, so we have the funding and capital ready to go. Cash is king, so I would, if I was an SME at the moment, I would be looking at all of the different government incentives and support packages that are available. We've had a look at a lot of these, and there seems to be some real genuine support there to get capital into small businesses. I would also say that Australia's also had 10 years worth of really good growth in asset prices, and now's the time to use the equity that's been built up. So as I said before, the situation today isn't permanent. If you build up equity in the good times, now is the time to access that equity and use it to bridge a gap so you can be funded and ready for when the economy returns to normal.
Yeah, that's good. Is there anything else that you'd like to cover? Anything we haven't talked about today, or the way that Prime acts, or something that you'd love to see, or anything like that?
Not really. Other than everything comes to pass eventually. So good times. We've been on a run for a very long time here in Australia. We've had some good times. Now there's some bad times, but they'll eventually come to pass as well. So we remain committed to continuing to support the brokers and the community and our borrowers at large. We're here to help. And it's really our ambition to emerge from this stronger and better prepared for whatever changes might have evolved because of the working environment. So often during difficult periods, this is when the most progress is made. Technology is changing, the way people are working are changing. It may lead to different types of products emerging, and I would like to be at the forefront of that and ready for when the economy returns to normal.
Perfect. Danny Adams with Prime Capital, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate it, and I'm sure we'll be talking soon.
Thanks very much, CT.
All right, cheers.